You're not 80. You're not even 65. You're in your late 30s or 40s, maybe early 50s. You're juggling work, kids, aging parents, a mortgage, and a phone that pings so much it feels like part of your nervous system. One day, you get a weird headache. Your vision goes a little off for a few seconds. Your arm or hand feels heavy and clumsy, and then it passes. For a lot of people, that's how the real story of a stroke begins. But in that moment, nobody recognizes it as the beginning of anything. You shake it off. It's just stress. I'm too young for a stroke. I just need a weekend to recharge. But here's the uncomfortable truth. For more and more people under 50, a stroke doesn't start like a dramatic movie scene with someone collapsing on the floor. It starts quietly, with silent triggers building up in the background while life looks normal on the outside. Let me ask you something. When your body sends you a strange signal, a sudden headache, foggy vision, a moment of slurred words, do you pause and question it, or do you instantly blame stress, coffee, lack of sleep, or getting older? We still picture stroke as something that happens to an 80-year-old grandparent in a nursing home. That image is so strong that a lot of people in their 40s and 50s literally can't imagine the word stroke applying to them. And that's a problem, because medicine has been quietly watching a different story. Strokes in younger and middle-aged adults are no longer rare, 1 in a million events. Now, I'm not telling you this to scare you or to make you paranoid about every twinge or headache. I'm telling you this because there is a huge gap between how people under 50 think stroke works and how it actually works in real life. In your 30s and 40s, and even into your early 50s, you have a built-in excuse for almost every symptom. You're tired because you're busy. You have headaches because you're on a screen all day. Your neck hurts because you slept funny. You're dizzy because you skipped lunch. So the early warning signs, the ones that should make you stop and ask, what's really going on in my body, all get filed under the same label, busy life. And here's where I want to be very clear about my opinion. Relying on "I'm too young for that" might be one of the most dangerous health beliefs for people under 50 today. This video is not about turning you into a hypochondriac. It's about turning you into someone who understands the quiet conditions and habits that can put your brain at risk long before your 50th birthday, especially when they start piling up together. So as you listen, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Count how many of these silent triggers apply to you or to someone you love. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to put it in the comments. Just be honest with yourself for the next few minutes. And if you're in your 40s or 50s and no one has ever sat you down and explained stroke risk to you in plain English, no medical jargon, no fear tactics, you might want to stick around this channel. Think of it as your health translation service, so you're not flying blind with something as important as your brain. Here's the key idea. Any one risk factor by itself doesn't guarantee a stroke. Life is never that simple. But when several of them stack on top of each other, especially under 50, your risk can climb a lot faster than you think. In a moment, I'm going to walk you through 7 silent triggers that almost no one warns people under 50 about. These are things that often look normal on the outside, common habits, common diagnoses, common excuses. But behind the scenes, they're slowly changing the way blood flows to your brain. Before we jump into that list, ask yourself this second question. If your body has been whispering for a while, odd headaches, weird fatigue, strange episodes you can't quite explain, have you really listened, or have you just been hoping it will all magically sort itself out? If that hit a nerve, stay with me. We'll start with one of the most dangerous silent triggers of all, the one that can be quietly damaging your blood vessels for years before anyone notices. Let's start with the first silent trigger, the one that quietly hurts more brains than any headline ever will. Uncontrolled high blood pressure you don't feel. We like to think we'd know if something serious was wrong. Chest pain, crushing headache, some dramatic warning sign. But high blood pressure doesn't work like that. Most of the time, it feels like nothing. You can wake up, answer emails, drive carpool, sit in meetings, cook dinner, and all day long, your blood vessels are being hit with more pressure than they were designed to handle. Tiny injuries over and over inside the walls of your arteries. You don't see it, you don't feel it, but your brain's blood supply is living inside that storm. If you're under 50 and nobody has ever actually told you your blood pressure numbers, that's not proof you're healthy. That's a blind spot. So let me ask you this.
When was the last time you could honestly say, I know my blood pressure and I know whether it's in a healthy range for me? For a lot of people in their 30s and 40s, the only time a blood pressure cuff goes on their arm is during a rushed visit, urgent care, a minor procedure, a quick physical for work. If nobody in the room stops and says, hey, this number is high, we need to talk, that moment just disappears. The problem doesn't disappear, but the memory of it does. Now, let's stack the second trigger on top of that. Silent trigger number 2. Smoking or vaping, plus I'm still young. Cigarettes have been around long enough that we all know they're bad. But here's how the mind often works under 50. I'll quit later. I don't smoke that much. At least I switched to vaping. The problem isn't just the cigarette in your hand today. It's what years of nicotine, chemicals, and inflammation do to the lining of your blood vessels, especially if they're already being battered by high blood pressure, extra weight, or high blood sugar. And if you're a woman who smokes and also uses certain hormone-based birth control, that's not just a harmless habit. In combination with other factors, it can quietly increase the risk of blood clots that can travel to the brain. Which brings us to silent trigger number 3, one that a lot of women have never had fully explained to them. Hormones, birth control, and migraines with aura. Hormones are not the villain. Birth control is not bad. For many women, these medications are essential and life-changing. But certain combinations deserve a more honest, grown-up conversation. If you're a woman under 50 who uses estrogen-containing birth control or hormone therapy, and you have migraine with aura, the kind with flashing lights, zigzag lines, or strange visual changes, and on top of that you also smoke or vape, you may be sitting on a risk cocktail that nobody has really translated for you. Most people hear migraine and think bad headache, but migraine with aura, plus estrogen, plus smoking, plus possibly high blood pressure, that's not just a rough day. That mix can quietly raise the chance of a clot forming and finding its way to your brain. So here's my second big question for you. Have you ever had a real, unhurried conversation with a doctor about how your personal combination of habits, hormones, and history affects your stroke risk? Or have you just assumed each piece was harmless on its own? Because that's the trap, looking at each factor in isolation. I only smoke socially. My blood pressure is probably fine. My migraines are just hormonal. My doctor never said anything, so I guess I'm fine. Let me give you a quick example to make this more concrete. Imagine a 39-year-old woman. She's had migraine with aura since her 20s. She's on a birth control pill with estrogen. She smokes only on weekends to relax. She's gained some weight in the last few years, but nothing dramatic. She blames her fatigue on work and kids. On paper, each piece alone doesn't look urgent. But to her blood vessels, that combination has been a flashing warning light for years. She just didn't know how to see it. Your blood vessels don't experience your life in separate folders. They experience the total load, the pressure, the inflammation, the clots, the sugar, the sleep, all stacked together. Now let's move to a set of triggers that are even easier to ignore because they often hide behind normal lab work and everyday excuses. Silent trigger number 4, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. Most people think of blood sugar as a diabetes problem. But long before an official diagnosis, your blood vessels are already getting the message. Elevated blood sugar, insulin resistance, extra belly fat, and high triglycerides together act like a slow, sticky coating on the inside of your arteries. You may not feel your blood sugar creeping up. You might still be going to work, hitting the gym here and there, taking care of your family. But your blood vessels feel it, in the form of chronic irritation and damage that can set the stage for clots and blockages in the brain. There's a reason doctors worry when they see the combo of a bigger waistline, high blood pressure, borderline blood sugar, and low HDL, the so-called good cholesterol. That cluster, often called metabolic syndrome, is like sending your blood vessels a postcard that says, "Things are getting crowded in here." If, up to this point, you've already recognized yourself in 2 or 3 of these triggers, take a breath with me for a second. This is not about panic. This is about finally seeing the rope that's carrying more and more weight while it's still holding, before it snaps. Now let's stack another piece on the board. Silent trigger number 5. Heart rhythm problems you don't know you have, like undiagnosed atrial fibrillation. You don't need a medical degree to get the basic idea. When your heart beats in a steady rhythm, blood moves smoothly. When the rhythm becomes irregular, too fast, too chaotic, out of sync, small pockets of blood can swirl and stagnate. Stagnant blood likes to clot, and a clot in the wrong place can travel up and block a vessel in your brain. Some people feel this as strong palpitations, a flutter in the chest, or sudden shortness of breath. Others just feel tired, more winded going upstairs, a little off. And some people, especially under 50, feel nothing at all. So here's another question for you. Have you ever had an episode where your heart suddenly raced or felt out of rhythm for no good reason, and you just shrugged it off because you were busy, embarrassed, or didn't want to overreact? Now imagine that heart rhythm issue on top of high blood pressure, plus creeping blood sugar, plus a smoking habit, plus hormonal factors. One risk factor by itself might not scare you, but your body is doing the combined math 24 hours a day. Next up is a trigger that hides in bedrooms, not clinics. Silent trigger number 6, sleep apnea and chronic sleep debt. A lot of people under 50 wear bad sleep like a badge of honor. I get by on 5 hours. I'm just a night owl. I snore like a bear. My partner complains, but I'm fine. But your body may not agree. In obstructive sleep apnea, your airway partially collapses over and over while you're asleep. You snore loudly. You stop breathing for a few seconds. Your oxygen drops. Your brain goes on high alert and jolts you just enough to reopen things, sometimes dozens of times an hour. You think you're just a bad sleeper. Your body thinks it's being choked over and over every single night. That nightly choke and release pattern can push your blood pressure up, strain your heart, and increase inflammation, all of which feed right back into stroke risk. And chronic sleep debt, even without full-blown apnea, adds another layer of stress on your brain and blood vessels. Think about this quick example. A 45-year-old man snores so loudly that his partner has moved to another bedroom. He wakes up exhausted, lives on coffee, and falls asleep whenever he slows down. He jokes that he and sleep just don't get along and keeps going. One day he's told his blood pressure is high. He gets a prescription, but nobody asks about his sleep. Years later, he has a strange neurological episode, slurred speech, weakness in one arm. That might be the last warning shot before a bigger stroke. The snoring was never just funny. It was a silent trigger ignored for years. Now ask yourself, do you wake up unrefreshed, need caffeine to function, or get told you snore, gasp, or stop breathing in your sleep, and still tell yourself, that's just how I am? That brings us to silent trigger number 7, chronic inflammation and autoimmune conditions. Your immune system is supposed to be your defense team. But when it's constantly on fire, from autoimmune disease, uncontrolled obesity, extreme inactivity, or long-term low-grade inflammation, that fire doesn't stay neatly contained. Your blood vessels sit in that same inflammatory soup. Conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, psoriasis, severe obesity, or even long-term untreated gum disease can keep your immune system turned on in the background. Over time, that can speed up the process of atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaque in your arteries that can crack, clot, and block blood flow to your brain. So here's the third big question I want you to really sit with. When you add up your habits, your sleep, your numbers, and any diagnoses you've collected over the years, are you still telling yourself, "I'm too young for a stroke"? Or are you starting to see how these pieces might be quietly stacking up? Because most people under 50 who have a stroke don't wake up thinking, "Today is the day." They wake up thinking it's a normal Tuesday. They go to work, they run errands, they ignore the weird symptoms. And only afterward, when someone connects the dots, do they realize how many silent triggers were already there. Blood pressure, sugar, smoking, hormones, heart rhythm, sleep, inflammation, family history. Take a breath with me for a second. If you've been mentally checking boxes, blood pressure, sugar, smoking, hormones, sleep, inflammation, it might feel a little heavy right now. So let's flip the script. This is not an apocalypse message. This is an early warning message. None of these triggers guarantee that you'll have a stroke. Life is not that mechanical. What they do is quietly load weight onto a rope. At first, the rope stretches and holds. Then, over months and years, more weight gets added. Another habit, another diagnosis, another birthday. At some point, for some people, the rope snaps. What you're doing right now is looking at the rope before it breaks. So what do you actually do with that? First, you get out of the guessing game and into real numbers. Not vibes, not assumptions, numbers.
What is your blood pressure, really? What is your fasting blood sugar, or your A1C? What are your cholesterol numbers doing? What has happened to your waist size compared to a few years ago? You don't need to obsess over every decimal, but you do need to know whether you're in a range that keeps your blood vessels safer or secretly under strain. Second, you use these 7 triggers as a conversation checklist with your doctor, not as a self-diagnosis kit. And here I have to be crystal clear. I am not a doctor. I'm not here to diagnose you, treat you, or replace your healthcare provider. This video is for general education only. I am not a doctor. Always consult your physician before making medical decisions or changing any medications. Your job is to show up with better questions. Questions like, given my blood pressure, my weight, and my family history, what's my real stroke risk? I have migraine with aura and I'm on estrogen. Is that combination okay for me? My partner says I snore and sometimes stop breathing at night. Could that be sleep apnea? I've had some weird heart flutters. Do we need to check my heart rhythm more carefully? Doctors are busy. They're human. Sometimes they focus on the problem you brought in that day and not the bigger picture. When you walk in with a clearer understanding of these silent triggers, you're not being dramatic, you're being a partner in your own care. Third, you look at the parts you can actually influence over time. Working toward healthier blood pressure, with medication if needed, without shame. Getting serious about quitting smoking or vaping, not someday, but now. Treating sleep apnea, instead of laughing it off as just loud snoring. Moving your body more and cleaning up your eating pattern. Not chasing perfection, just steady progress. Taking your autoimmune disease, chronic inflammation, or prediabetes seriously, not as identity labels, but as systems in your body that need attention. You don't have to fix everything at once, but you do have to start somewhere. So here's your fourth big question, and it might be the most important one. What is one concrete action you are willing to take in the next 24 hours to protect your brain? Is it booking an appointment? Checking your blood pressure? Asking about a sleep study? Talking to your partner about something you've been ignoring? And what excuse have you been using to delay that step? Because knowledge without action is just more noise.
Knowledge plus even one small step is momentum. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more piece we can't ignore. What to do in the moment if something is actually happening. All this talk about silent triggers is about long-term risk. But if, at any age, 30, 40, 50, or beyond, you suddenly notice any of these: one side of your face drooping, one arm feeling weak or numb, trouble speaking or understanding words, sudden loss of vision in one or both eyes, sudden severe dizziness, loss of balance, or the worst headache of your life, that is not the time to lie down, sleep it off, or ask social media what to do. That is a medical emergency. You may have heard the shortcut BEFAST: balance, eyes, face, arm, speech, time. The exact letters matter less than the message. If something sudden and strange hits your brain, time is everything. In the United States, that means calling 911, not driving yourself, not waiting to see if it goes away. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this: being under 50 does not make you bulletproof, but it does give you something priceless: time. Time to catch these silent triggers while you still have choices. Stroke isn't just about age. It's about the quiet math your blood vessels are doing every single day in the background of your busy life. The sooner you know what equation your body is working with, the sooner you can start changing it. So tell me in the comments, if you feel comfortable sharing, even in the simplest way, did any of these 7 triggers sound familiar? Are you team blood pressure, team bad sleep, team migraines, or something else? You don't have to share details. Even something as short as "I'm checking my numbers" might be exactly the nudge someone else needs. And if you're under 50 and nobody has ever broken this down for you before, this is your invitation. Subscribe, stick around, and let's keep having grown-up conversations about stroke, brain health, and the things you're not going to hear in a 30-second drug commercial. In the next video, we're going to talk about what some people call the warning shot before a major stroke, a mini stroke, or TIA. We'll look at what it can look like after 40, why so many people brush it off, and how those few minutes can change the rest of your life if you take them seriously. You're not too young. You're right on time, if you decide to act now.